making homelessness worse by helping. Possibly just one more example of the quote from Pogo, "We have met the enemy and he is us." As wealth disparity continues to grow, it results in a growing rate of homelessness in America and other countries. Hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children are put on the streets every year, and it seems that the typical approaches are not really solving the problem. The typical approaches may actually be making the situation worse. So with concerned individuals being aware of homeless people on the street tend to provide the most apparent solution, which is to provide temporary shelters. That gets the people off the streets and sort of protects them from the environment. The longer term solution is to figure out how to provide critical services, jobs, and housing so that it's a longer term solution. The difficulty is it's a longer term solution. It costs more money and larger investment of resources. Though by taking the short term approach, the difficulty is that it essentially ends up hiding the problem. So that if you provide homeless shelters for people, then the homelessness situation doesn't have the visibility that it had, so that it removes the apparent need for the longer term solution. It simply masks the situation. So it sort of shifts the burden from the longer term solution, which would better address the situation. The additional difficulty is that temporary shelters aren't free. I mean, it takes resources, funding, and funders are looking for short-term success, so that they tend to provide funds to those organizations that create short-term success. So it sort of encourages people to provide shelters. What that does is it promotes competition in organizations to do the short-term success, and therefore further mitigates the realization that the longer-term solution ought to be pursued, so that you don't have to continue to pursue temporary shelters. An additional aspect is that homelessness people actually produce barriers to getting them off of the street. It's sort of like a catch-22, so that because you're homeless, it's more difficult for others to provide you with resources to get you off of the street. So it's a vicious reinforcing cycle. The whole set of relationships simply shows that more often than not, we end up treating the symptoms as opposed to really dealing with the underlying problem. And what that ensures is that we will have to continue to provide the quick-term fix on an ongoing basis. Essentially, the more temporary shelters you provide, the more temporary shelters you will have to provide in the future. And even with this ongoing set of relationships, while this is not all of the relationships that are relevant to the situation, there's a fundamental underlying aspect of this that I think is missing, because it doesn't address the situation of why are the people homeless to begin with. So this was actually repurposed from a systemic perspective approach to ending homelessness by David Peter Stroh and Michael Goodman. It's a marvelous article listed in the references. Take a look at it. Please provide your comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you in another perspective soon. Bye.